Welcome to the Innovation and Compliance Podcast, part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Join us every week as we talk with industry innovators who are making compliance to help business run more efficiently and at the end of the day, more profitably. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. And today I have with me Heather Buker. Heather is with Allgress, and we're going to talk about an exciting new innovation from Allgress around authorizations to operate in the federal sector. So Heather, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
It's a pleasure.
Heather, could you tell our audience a little bit about your professional background?
Absolutely. So I started my career as a back-end developer. I'm a computer scientist and computer engineer by trade. I very quickly made my way into the cybersecurity space as a cybersecurity consultant, doing all things from policy management, policy writing, risk assessments, you name it. I probably worked on a project that did it. From there, I moved over into Allgress, where I was a solution architect leading Allgress implementations from a technical perspective. Now I'm the Allgress product manager. So I lead our SDLC. I manage our SDLC process, the full life cycle, all of our development and QA processes as well, and our roadmap, things of that nature. So that's my current position at Allgress.
Heather, I've had the opportunity to visit with your colleague Jeff Kushner in a prior podcast, but I was wondering if you might tell us a little bit about who Allgress is, what you create, and who's your target market.
Absolutely. So Allgress is intended for anyone who's highly regulated, all the highly regulated industries, technology, government, healthcare, fintech, you name it. Allgress in general is a global provider of next generation audit, compliance, IT security, and risk management solutions for organizations and their business partners to meet business risk objectives. So we enable organizations to streamline these processes and manage the assessment, monitoring, reporting, and remediation of business risk with less complexity, reduced costs, and without an army of consultants. Today, you mentioned we're going to be talking about the FedRAMP ATO process. Recently, in late 2020, Allgress released a module called the Accreditation Manager with the intent to accelerate revenue and internal growth by reducing and mitigating the operational roadblocks to achieving these ATOs. And we're going to talk a little bit more, I think, later about what is an ATO, what is FedRAMP, things like that. And the AM module supports the full ATO lifecycle for existing and new ATOs, and obtaining and maintaining that ATO through continuous monitoring activity, including that monthly POAM generation requirements in a digitized platform. So a one-stop shop, if you will. So we start with standing up your system, automatically determining your classification via the FIPS 199, the control assessment, vulnerabilities, your risk register, and then finally generating your SSP and POAM and that full ATO package. So we support new cloud service providers looking to get into the FedRAMP space or looking to sell to the federal government, as well as existing ATOs and maintaining and doing continuous monitoring activities for those existing ATOs.
Heather, could I step back and ask, what is a FedRAMP ATO and why is one necessary to do business with the federal government?
Absolutely. So FedRAMP is this big, long acronym that ultimately stands for Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. And it's a government-wide program that provides a standardized approach to security assessments, authorization, and continuous monitoring for cloud products and services. So to get an ATO really means that the government is giving you, quote, the authority to operate, if you will, a compliant cloud-delivered service. So as the government continues to slash IT budgets, more and more agencies are being encouraged to move to these cloud services. With this comes different, new, and additional security requirements. So if you sell your service to the federal government or even in the federal government ecosystem, this FedRAMP ATO is necessary.
What's the most challenging part for a supplier or vendor or other entity to obtain an ATO?
Resources. We hear from our customers repeatedly that the documentation requirements are especially burdensome to meet and maintain, and this is due to the resources required. The documentation requirements are very stringent, and many customers, vendors, cloud service providers, et cetera, can spend upwards of $500,000 or more just to generate that initial ATO package. So this is why our accreditation module has such a focus on that package generation and looking to further streamline and automate that process for new and or existing ATOs.
Let me see if I heard this right. You're offering a service that not only increases efficiency, but is more cost effective?
Absolutely, tenfold at a minimum. Achieving ATO is extremely cumbersome. It requires multiple resources from an employee perspective, but the cost is just astounding. And Allgress aims to not only reduce that cost, but reduce the resources required. You don't need 10 people to run the platform and generate this package. So we're streamlining the process in general through integrations, through workflow automations, but also reducing resources both monetarily and from an employee perspective.
Heather, this podcast is going to go up in a series entitled Innovation and Compliance. And it struck me that this is one of the most innovative products that I've been able to visit with someone about for a long time. So with that, what happens after you get your FedRAMP ATO?
Oh, then the real fun begins. So attaining the ATO is simply table stakes. That's the bare minimum requirement. Then after you achieve your initial ATO with the FedRAMP PMO office, then you have to worry about continuous monitoring. Now, what do we do? How do we maintain our ATO? How do we continuously monitor all of our controls? How do we continuously prove our compliance and our ATO package? So our AM module takes that monthly work cycle. So this is generating a monthly POAM, doing your recertifications annually against whichever level of FedRAMP you're required, whether it be low, moderate, or high. And we digitize and automate large portions of that, again, through those integrations with vulnerability scanners, for example, through streamlining the workflow using components that we've already proven out in other pieces of our product and pulling them in together into one workflow, into one module that is completely tailored to achieving and maintaining this ATO and making sure that when that monthly date hits and you have to regenerate that POAM, you're always ready to go. And all you have to do is press what we like to call the magic button, and your POAM's generated and it's ready to be sent off to the FedRAMP PMO every 30 days.
You know, Heather, people who I interview for this podcast who actually name the podcast in their commentary get a special gold star. And you just said hitting the magic button, and that should be the title of this podcast. So you get a special gold star. Kudos to you
Fantastic.
and Jeff for that one.
I love gold stars.
Yes.
Let's see how many more we can get.
Well, there's only one title per episode, so we're going to have to do more episodes.
Dang it. It's on.
Can I ask, what is the importance of the FedRAMP SSP?
Absolutely. So the SSP document is truly the only document that the procurement team and the agency IT staff are going to review to determine if they can procure your product. So it is the most important document that our AM module generates. It's the proof is in the pudding, right? And the SSP is the pudding. So regardless of the features and functionality, if your SSP isn't well crafted, you'll never get the sale. You will never sell into the FedRAMP space as a CSP. So it's often the only opportunity you have with your potential customer to instill that confidence you need in your offer security posture. So the SSP is absolutely paramount.
So why do you need a GRC application to attain and maintain your FedRAMP ATO effectively? And more importantly, how can Allgress help you to do so?
Absolutely. So there are so many answers to this question because a GRC application, as with most technologies intended to make your life easier, that's what a GRC application is going to do for a CSP. We're going to give you the dynamic preparedness assessment. We're going to automatically determine your impact level based on a survey and based on the FIPS 199. We're going to guide you through the entire process from cradle to grave, if you will, through I want to attain an ATO. I don't know exactly what steps I need to take. Allgress is there to lead you through the way step by step from creating your information system and creating your ATO project through the FedRAMP certification, through integrating with your vulnerability scanners, pulling in all of the applicable vulnerabilities for that particular information system, and then ultimately generating that magic package, right? So we're going to completely automate and streamline that process required for all the documentation. We're going to give you the audit trail that you need, right? So that when the auditors come in and they have questions, you're going to have all of the answers, and it's going to be in the single pane of glass view that Allgress provides. The evidence availability. So having a one-stop shop for all of your control owners to come in and provide all of the evidence necessary and the policies necessary when you're attesting to the FedRAMP controls. All of that is in one tool and it's in one module, ready to go, step-by-step guide. So that's really what Allgress is going to provide for you. And that's the benefit of getting information into technology, right? Is ultimately that single pane of glass view that all GRC tools are trying to attain. And Allgress does that very well.
I was wondering if we might turn now to some issues around into the future and perhaps start with, we're recording this in May of 2021, and most of the country is beginning to open up now, some more robustly than other parts of the country. But how has the past year really changed the need for GRC solutions for the Allgress customer base?
I'm not sure that the past year has changed the need per se. The need's always been there. I think that instead, the COVID-19 pandemic put a spotlight on it. It really exposed organizations and whether or not they had these processes properly in place. Did you have a disaster recovery plan? Now, to say that organizations need a disaster recovery plan for a pandemic pre-March 2020 is probably a stretch. That's not anything that anyone had in the forefront of their mind, right? Especially from an information security perspective. But COVID-19 was a reminder to organizations that we don't know when and where unexpected risk will strike and how we're going to be impacted and how it's going to propagate through all of the systems. Organizations had to send their employees home, had to then consider all of the implications with remote workers when they're used to brick and mortar. They're used to all of their infrastructure being in-house. Sure, they probably had a bring your own device policy, but how does all of that change and how do organizations have to adapt when now we're talking about home networks, right? So products like Allgress attempt to proactively prepare organizations for these potential risks by automating organizational and partner risk assessment and management, and again, leading them in the direction of having those disaster recovery plans, having incident response plans to better prepare them for the unexpected. Now, we can never truly be 100% prepared for the unexpected, but the COVID-19 health crisis certainly put a spotlight on we have to start emphasizing that, especially within the information security space.
And now if I could turn to the veiled land of the future and actually perhaps focus on the product we've been talking about now and the FedRAMP ATOs, is where do you see all this in 5, perhaps 10 years? Will it be a continuation of increased efficiency and cost savings, or perhaps something else?
Well, increased efficiency and cost savings is always the goal, right? Then in addition to that, your user interface, your usability of your product is so important. User adoption is something that's so difficult to achieve. When you introduce a new product to your workforce, especially a product that hits a lot of resources like a GRC tool, it's really difficult to get the users to adopt. So it's imperative that GRC solutions continue to become more user-friendly and reduce that learning curve so that users are going to adopt the technology more quickly and with ease. So that's just going to further the information security program for that organization. Additionally, artificial intelligence, integrations, automation. Now, we use the word automation a lot in the GRC space, but automation now means something different than it's going to mean 5 to 10 years from now. The more we can automate and the more we can reduce the learning curve and the complexities of integration, the more efficient and even the more cost-effective GRC tool solutions are going to become. Because again, we're all trying to create that single pane of glass view, one-stop shop. Log in here, and here's all the information you need about your InfoSec program or your GRC program. The more we can continue to integrate and the easier that can become, the better off we'll be 5 or 10 years from now. The more sophisticated these programs are going to become, and the less complex the GRC world will be. Right now, some tools don't have a lot of integrations, and integrations are a way of the future. Artificial intelligence is a way of the future because everyone wants to truly automate and streamline these processes. And if you're not on the integration train, you're going to be left behind for certain.
That seems like a great place for us to end this podcast. But before we do, Heather, I was wondering If our listeners wanted any more information on any of the topics that you have discussed in this podcast, where can they go?
Absolutely. So you can visit us at allgress.com, allgress.com. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn or Twitter. We're pretty active in all of those spaces. But if you want any more information, please visit our website. We'd be happy to help.
Well, Heather, this has been a fascinating exploration of, I'm just going to say, efficiency and cost savings wrapped together for a very important solution. I hope that we can continue the conversation down the road.
Absolutely. We'd love to. It's been a pleasure.
If you want to stay up to date on the latest innovations in compliance and help your business run more efficiently, subscribe to this podcast and help spread the word by leaving a review.